Hello and welcome to this video on writing book endings and how to get there. All right, so there is a wonderful approach that we can look at when it comes to writing book endings. We can look at a scene from Alice in Wonderland. And at one point, Alice meets with the cat, and they have this conversation. Cat asks, "Where are you going?" Alice, "Which way should I go?" Cat, "That depends on where you are going." Alice, "I don't know." Cat, "Then it doesn't matter which way you go. So when it comes to writing a book, if you do not know where you are going, if you do not have a general idea of the end of the book, when you are writing and you're thinking to yourself, what should come next? The answer is, it doesn't really matter because you don't know where you're going. Or it'll make it very difficult to figure out that question of what should I write next if you don't know in a general sense of how it's going to end. When I teach face-to-face classes, I like to do this activity in class, and I'll kind of demonstrate it here in this video. So I put up a picture of a lighthouse, and I tell the students that the goal is to get to the top of the lighthouse. And we're going to create a story together. So over here on the far shore is, let's say it's a young lady, maybe not young, let's say she's 18, she's a normal human being, doesn't have any special powers or anything like that. But at the top of the lighthouse is what will make her life absolutely happy. It's everything she's ever wanted is found at the top of this lighthouse. So I asked the students, okay, so she's over here on this far shore. How does she get from this shore to the top of the lighthouse? So a student will make a suggestion like, oh, she'll start to swim. And then I'll say, okay, well, she starts to swim and she realizes the water is too cold and she won't have the strength to get to the lighthouse. So she knows that option doesn't work. So she kind of goes back to shore and now she's wet and cold. I said, what does she do now? And someone will say, well, she looks around to find a boat. And we say, okay, well, she looks over here and it just so happens tied up is a little rowboat. So she gets into the rowboat and she starts to row her way across towards the lighthouse. And I said, and suddenly she gets attacked by a what? And then I'll get all sorts of answers like an octopus or a shark. And I'll say, okay, the octo shark is attacking her. What does she do next? And then the students will say, she beats off the octo shark with one of the paddles and it runs away. And I said, okay, but in the process, her boat is starting to sink and her paddle is broken. What does she do next? And then from there, we get all sorts of interesting ideas of how she eventually gets over to the lighthouse. I've had a few classes where students say, well, then she dies. Well, that's unfortunate. Okay. But let's say after I keep throwing all these obstacles at this character, she finally makes it to the lighthouse. And she climbs to the top of the lighthouse. Or let's say, we could even say she arrives at the lighthouse and the door's locked. What does she do then? Okay. But finally she makes it to the top of the lighthouse. And I say, and what does she find? And the answer of what she finds at the top of the lighthouse, what I have found by doing this activity, really varies and is kind of developed based on what she has experienced at that point in time. We knew she wanted to get to the top of the lighthouse because that was her end goal. But what did she discover up there often is a result of how she got there. Something to think about. So, what happens till you get to the end of the book and it's not quite what you expected? Then change the ending. More than likely, as you've written the story and you've had a direction to go, Your story is going to develop and change, and your character is going to change and develop, and it may impact on really what would make a more satisfying ending. That's okay. In the academic world, we call that changing your thesis. You have a thesis statement where you kind of go in and you start to do research on whatever the topic is. And then after you've done all your research, you recognize, well, my research doesn't really match my thesis statement. What should I do? The answer is go back and change your thesis statement so it matches the information you found. Another thing you have to consider when it comes to writing the end of a book is that really at the beginning of the book, you sort of made a promise with the reader. Not necessarily a pinky promise, but you made a promise that you've kind of introduced this character or these characters, the setting, these conflicts, and did you really resolve those? Now, it doesn't have to be a happy ending, but did you really kind of keep your promise in the premise that you set up? And one way to consider that is to look at it this way. The concept of circling back. Sometimes I've heard the concept that the end of your book really needs to circle back to the beginning of the book to demonstrate how far your character has come. Put them in a similar situation or setting as to where they started out, and you can recognize how much they've grown or changed as a person. It really kind of closes the circle. That is one way to consider it. So, some final thoughts. As I have written quite a few books, I would say, well, 11 I think is quite a few. Sometimes I've had very straightforward endings that I knew were coming up. Sometimes I had some general ideas that actually changed as I wrote the book. And on one occasion, I really didn't have an ending. I didn't follow my gut. I didn't follow my instincts that I should have an ending. And that was probably the hardest book to write. And it really wasn't able to be completed until I decided finally to say, okay, where is this going to go? And that ended up solving a lot of the problems when it came to try to write the book. So with all that in mind, I hope you gleaned something from this that will help you. There you go.